I never expected to find my first love selling lemonade. But what happened next changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced when I spotted that familiar figure under the blazing sun, the shimmering light bouncing off a makeshift lemonade stand. It couldn't be. But there she was, Mia. My first love, my first heartache. The wrinkled red and white checkered tablecloth barely clung to the table, as if it feared being associated with the chaos brewing around it. Mia stood there, vibrant as ever, her hair dancing in the breeze, but something felt off. Her hands trembled as she poured icy lemonade into a cup, the condensation rolling like beads down the sides. She smiled at passers-by, but her eyes, they held a shadow of sorrow I had never seen before. I felt the air thicken as I approached, heart slamming against my chest like a drummer in a parade. "Hey," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Memories rushed back: laughter, warm summer evenings, promises made under starlight. We were invincible then. But looking at her now, it felt like those days belonged to someone else. "Is that really you?" She turned, her expression a mix of surprise and something deeper, something painful. "Yeah, it's me. I never thought I'd see you here." Her voice cracked, sending a chill down my spine. It was not the joyous reunion I had imagined. Around us, children giggled, the sweet scent of fresh lemons mixing oddly with tension. A few people murmured, eyebrows raised, casting glances that felt like daggers. Their whispers floated in the air, thickening the drama. "What happened to you?" I asked, desperation clawing at my throat. The moment felt delicate, hanging by a thread. She hesitated, narrow fingers toying with the edge of the table, her gaze flickering to the ground. A hint of sadness lingered in her voice. Life happened. There was a weight in her eyes that I couldn't ignore. The noise around us faded, leaving just the sound of my heartbeat ringing in my ears. "Are you okay?" I pressed, time stretching unbearably. But before she could answer, a shout pierced through the air. A figure burst into our moment, someone I didn't recognize. Their face was twisted in anger, pointing at Mia with fire in their eyes. "You shouldn't be here. You can't just sell lemonade like nothing happened." My stomach flipped, confusion washing over me as the crowd hushed. Mia's eyes widened, fear rippling across her features. I have to," she stammered, fear mixing with resolve. The tension was unbearable. Every spectator held their breath, unsure what would erupt next. What did this mean? I felt as if I were teetering on the edge of a mystery, every heartbeat echoing the question in my mind. What had happened to Mia? What was the truth lurking just beneath her smile? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as I stood next to Mia, the fiery stranger still looming over her like a storm cloud. The crowd's attention was fixed, their murmurs creating an electric tension that buzzed in the summer air. Every instinct in me screamed to protect her, to demand to know the truth behind this confrontation. "Mia, what's going on?" I questioned softly, my eyes searching for answers in the depths of her troubled gaze. She opened her mouth to respond, but the stranger interjected, his voice sharp and accusatory. "You think you can just come back and pretend everything is fine? You owe too many people to just sweep back in like a wave, Mia." Each word hit me like a wave crashing on the shore, both unfinished and unresolved. That I reached out, instinct driving me to comfort her even as fear cracked my confidence. "You don't have to explain anything to him," I said, my voice gaining strength. "Whatever it is, we can figure it out together." Her eyes flickered with a blend of gratitude and despair. "Sam," "No," she started, but he cut her off again. "Together? Is that what you think you can do?" He mocked, his laughter a chilling echo. "You wouldn't even understand the mess you're in." Suddenly, Mia stepped forward, drawing in a breath as if collecting her scattered thoughts. "I'm trying to do better, Lucas." She whispered his name with a vulnerability that revealed layers I never knew. "I messed up. I can't change the past, but this is my chance to make amends to AS." She spoke, I felt my heart fracture for both her and for the life that had once wrapped around us so tightly, now unraveling in front of me. I wanted to reach for her hand, to hold on to the memory of who she had been, but I stood still, rooted in disbelief and helplessness. Lucas' expression morphed into something softer, almost like pity. Your chance means nothing if you can't own up to what you did. You can't just bottle up your regrets and hand them out like lemonade. His words sunk deep, and for a fleeting moment, the vibrancy of her previous life dimmed, flickering like the neon glow of a malfunctioning sign. Suddenly, the ground beneath us shifted, revealing a fissure filled with years of unspoken pain and secrets. Mia rediscovered her resolve, raising her chin despite the tremble in her hands. "I'm here, aren't I? I'm trying," she asserted, her vulnerability hardening into something fiery. But as she glanced back at me, I could see the flicker of doubt beneath her defensive facade. Before I could respond, a little girl approached us, clutching her father's hand. She was bright-eyed and curious, completely unbothered by the tension that thickened the atmosphere. "Can I have some lemonade, please?" she asked, innocence blossoming in her tone. Mia's gaze softened for a brief moment, flickering with a longing to connect, to be reminded of the joy of simple things. "Of course," she replied, her hands steadied by the girl's innocence. The tension melted for just a heartbeat as she poured a small cup and handed it over, a soft smile gracing her lips. The girl beamed in return, and I realized how powerful even a fleeting interaction could be. It seemed to momentarily thaw the ice encasing Mia's heart. "Thank you," the little girl chirped, before skipping away, her laughter ringing through the crowd. But as the moment passed, reality crashed in around us once more. Lucas' eyes darkened, and I felt the air shift, carrying a new weight of unspoken tension. "You can't run away from your mistakes, Mia," he warned, as if the threat lingered just beneath the surface. Mia's shoulders sagged at the reminder, the fleeting comfort of the girl's joy giving way to shadows of her past. I moved forward, desperate to offer her support, when suddenly Lucas pointed straight at me, his voice rising. "And you think you can just slip back into her life and save her? You have no idea what you're getting into." My heart dropped. With those words, the gravity of my involvement became terrifyingly clear. What if this wasn't just about Mia? What if her past had dark tendrils that reached deeper than I could fathom? As the crowd gazed at us expectantly, I sensed a chilling end to this tenuous moment of connection. Just then, a loud crash erupted from down the street, tearing my focus away from the escalating argument. I turned to look, and it felt as if an unseen force drew me closer to the unexpected chaos. In that split second, amid the uncertainty of what was unfolding with Mia and her past, I sensed that the fabric of our lives was about to be wrenched apart. What lay behind me and what lay ahead felt impossibly intertwined, and as dread pooled in my stomach, the realization dawned. I was about to discover just how deep the roots of Mia's past reached, and with it, the truth about my own heart's fate. The cheerful notes of laughter melted into the background as I turned toward the direction of the sound, a sudden explosion shifting the atmosphere from confrontation to chaos. A motorbike had collided with a lamppost just a few yards away, sending shards of glass and metal spraying across the pavement. The abruptness of the crash pulled a collective gasp from the crowd, and in that moment, all eyes were diverted. "Mia?" I shouted, instinctively moving closer to her, my body a shield against the perils that had suddenly erupted. She stood frozen, her eyes wide as shock mingled with fear, the remnants of her earlier resolve crumbling like dry leaves against the torrent of disbelief. I reached for her, grasping her hand tightly, grounding her in the maelstrom around us. "Let's get out of here," I urged, trying to steer her away from the tides of confusion swirling nearby. But Mia didn't budge. She stood there, anchored to the very place where her past threatened to engulf her again. "That I can't leave," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I have to face this." The determination in her eyes battled with the hesitance that clouded her expression. I felt my heart ache at the prospect of her confronting the ghosts that had haunted her. "Face it. You don't have to face anything right now. This is crazy," I insisted, willing her to see reason. "You need space to breathe, to think." Sam, her voice cracked, and it opened a chasm of vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "What if this is the moment I need? What if I don't get another chance? Lucas, still lurking in the periphery, stepped closer, his expression shifting with the chaos. Look around you, Mia. This is not the time for self-discovery. You want to heal? You need to distance yourself from the mess you left behind. His words were sharper than daggers. Yet I sensed a conflicted regret vibrating beneath the surface. I tore my gaze from him and focused solely on Mia. I don't want you to face anything alone, I implored, the desperation threading my voice. You don't have to do this by yourself. We can figure it out together, a woman screamed from the scene of the crash, pulling our attention back to the reality fracturing around us. An overwhelmed bystander tried to direct traffic, while others rushed forward to help the injured motorist strewn across the pavement. Panic rippled through the crowd, and the urgency in the air felt like a grenade about to explode. Mia? I squeezed her hand tighter, channeling every ounce of love and urgency I could pour into that brief connection. Please, let's just go. For a fleeting moment, her expression softened, the walls she had built crumbling just enough for a flicker of warmth to shine through. But then, like a door slamming shut, her gaze shifted back to the explosion of crisis before us. I have to know why he's here, she stated, though the tremor in her voice betrayed the turmoil within her. Who? Lucas? My mind raced to comprehend the reality that was unfolding. What do you hope to gain from this? She hesitated, and in that moment, the world around us faded, the chaos and noise muffled as if we were encased in glass, holding our breaths. I need closure, she whispered, her face reflecting the burden of 1,000 forgotten promises that threatened to suffocate her. I need to understand my past before I can move toward my future. Before I could respond, Lucas took a step forward, breaking the fragile spell. Closure? You're still a coward, Mia. You think facing me will mend years of running away? You're only opening scars that should have remained closed. The venom in his voice imbued the air with the weight of history, the shattered past reigning over us both. You don't understand the weight of what I carried, Lucas. She shot back, the fire in her voice igniting a flicker of hope in my chest. This time, I won't be swept away. I'm done letting you control my life. But the defiance in her words was shadowed by a painful uncertainty. I sensed her straining against the chains of her own history, the fragility of her spirit laid bare before Lucas, the truth hanging just out of reach. That the sirens wailed in the distance, weaving through the fabric of our tangled emotions. A sudden realization struck me like lightning. I turned back toward the chaos, glancing over the crowd at the huddled figures and the flashing lights pushing through the gathering dusk. The accident had revealed a penchant for chaos. But what trauma lay buried in MIA's past was just as deadly. Whatever this is, I said, my voice firm yet gentle, we'll face it together. We can't let the shadows of your past consume your light. Her eyes flickered, wavering between hope and fear as she finally turned back to me. But just as a glimpse of understanding began to thread through us, a wild voice ripped through the air, charging toward us with frightening urgency. Mia? A stranger yelled, a figure barreling from the fringes of the crowd. You need to know. It's bigger than you think. The reason I was following you. The reason they're coming for you. Caught in a whirlwind of confusion, I watched MIA's face drain of color, dread cloaking her features as realization sank into the depths of her being. The world around us seemed to shatter once more. In that instant, the budding hope that had begun to anchor us together hung precariously in the balance, teetering on the brink of an undeniable truth that threatened to rewrite everything we knew. MIA's breath hitched as the stranger's words reverberated in the air, heavy with ominous significance. The crowd, which moments ago had been swirling with concern and chaos, now stood transfixed, curiosity mixing with apprehension, waiting for the puzzle pieces to align or scatter even further. Mia, I whispered, squeezing her hand tighter, hoping to anchor her as the weight of the world threatened to drag her deeper into shadows. Who is this? My eyes darted between her and the newcomer, a mix of confusion and dread anchoring my heart to the ground. Stay back, the stranger yelled, throwing a protective arm over Mia as the flames of panic ignited all around. You don't understand, it's not safe. They're watching. Who is watching? I demanded, the frantic pulse of my heart matching the chaos that still pulsed from the accident scene. My mind raced, trying to catch hold of the pieces being scattered around us, the ghosts of MIA's past, present dangers, the unmistakable tension in the air filled with fear and anger. The stranger, unkempt hair whipping around his face, stumbled slightly, as if every word he spoke bore an unbearable weight. The people you thought you left behind, Mia? Your past, it didn't vanish. It's been hunting for you. MIA's expression shifted from fear to something deeper, a flicker of recognition combined with a bitter heartbreak that clawed at me. What are you talking about? She managed, her voice a shaky whisper, yet it trembled with a desperation that cut through the noise swirling around us. Your family, the decisions you made, theory, coming back to claim what they believe is theirs. And they won't stop until they get it. Panic rippled through the crowd. A few murmurs rose in pitch, as if people were unsure whether to listen or run. The chaos from the motorbike accident felt like a mere distraction from this unexpected revelation. The sense of safety I had clung to with Mia seemed to fragment, and I could almost taste the ticking clock that loomed over our heads with every passing moment. And oh no, this can't be happening, Mia murmured, her eyes wide with dawning terror. The courage she summoned earlier now felt like a paper-thin veil pulled away to expose the raw flesh of anxiety beneath. Mia? I stepped closer, shielding her from how the world around us swirled into chaos. This doesn't define you. We can't let fear dictate our next move. I felt hot frustration rise against the world, against whatever unseen forces were at work here, against Lucas hovering in the background like a dark cloud. The stranger turned toward me, his gaze piercing through my resolve. You don't get it. This isn't just her past, it's yours too now. They will come after you if you're tied to her. An icy shiver threaded through me, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. I had waded deeper into MIA's life, crossing the boundary from protector to target. In that moment of recognition, a flurry of emotions surged, fear mixed with unyielding determination. Whatever tangled history pulled Mia back could endanger us both. I wouldn't turn my back on her now. Before I could respond, the crowd began to disperse, an unspoken instinct pulling them away from the epicenter of potential danger. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the tension as people rushed to clear the scene of the accident that had torn apart the fragile fabric of our day. Mia, please. We need to leave, I urged, my tone a mix of insistence and care. Her hand felt so small in mine, so vulnerable, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing her to something that had already hurt her too deeply. No, she replied, her voice steadier now, though a tremor still echoed beneath the surface. If they're really coming for me, I can't run. I have to confront them. The stranger tightened his grip on her, a flash of fear in his eyes. You don't understand. They won't spare anyone who tries to protect you. I don't care. She shouted fiercely, shaking off his hold as she stepped forward, a whirlwind of emotions caught between anger and resolve. I'm done being a victim. They'll fight for my life this time. The strange atmosphere hung heavily as I saw the cracks of fear break open space for her strength to emerge. But just as I tried to fathom the depths of her bravery, Lucas stepped forward, his face a mixture of incredulity and anger. You all have no idea what you're dealing with. Whatever is waiting for you out there, Mia, it can tear you apart. Realizing something was shifting, I turned my eyes to the crowd, seeking support from familiar faces. But they were vanishing, only shadows now as the emergency vehicles loomed closer, red and blue lights illuminating the remnants of the accident that had kicked off this storm. Mia, we can't stay here. You can't stay here, I pleaded once more, grasping her shoulders and staring into her eyes. We'll find the truth together. But running headfirst into danger will only bury us deeper. As the reality of our precarious situation began to sink in, the stranger leaned closer, desperation lacing his voice. If you leave now, you might escape, but they'll come back. And you'll have a target on your back forever. With those words hanging in the air, dread twisted in my stomach. Time felt frozen, a silent clock counting down to an irrevocable shift in our destinies. Mia seemed to teeter on the edge of a precipice, her need for resolution warring against the instinct for survival. Which life do you choose, Mia? I asked, fighting to keep the tremble out of my own voice as wavering uncertainty darkened her gaze. One that fights in fear, or one that fights for freedom? Just then, a piercing scream sliced through the air, chasing shadows across my mind. My heart dropped. All I could see was a figure enveloped in darkness at the edge of the crowd, eyes locked on Mia with an intent that sent ice through my veins. The crowd began to scatter, and the world erupted once more into chaos. Yet one truth remained clear. Whatever were the stakes of our choices, we were now caught in a game where the next move could cost us everything. As chaos erupted around us, the figure remained anchored at the edge, a silhouette amidst the flickering emergency lights that danced like restless spirits. I felt my pulse quicken, a primal instinct tugging at me to shield Mia from whatever dark omen loomed in the distance. "Get down," I shouted, instinctively pulling her closer, ready to protect her from an unseen force. "Mia, we need to find somewhere safe," I urged, glancing at the stranger who still hovered protectively near her, a guardian haunted by shadows of his own. The crowd had melted away, leaving behind remnants of disbelief in their eyes. But the sense of urgency only escalated in my chest. Mia's brow furrowed in contemplation, her mind clearly wrestling with the tremors of past pain and the resolve for something greater. It was as if she stood at a crossroads, torn between fleeing from the weight of her family's shadows and confronting a truth she had buried deep within. "I can't run forever, and I won't cower," she replied, her voice steadier than I expected. Yet there was a crack of vulnerable thread woven through her defiance. The figure's ominous presence moved slightly, and a chill crept through me as I realized it wasn't just any stranger. There was an unsettling familiarity. "Mia," I said urgently, striving to ground her even as my heart raced. "Who is that?" "I don't know," she whispered, her voice betraying uncertainty. I couldn't believe her. The intensity of that gaze felt like an accusation from her past. The stranger's eyes darted between us, filled with a yearning for answers, desperation, and perhaps warning. Before I could press further, a commotion erupted nearby, drawing our attention. A pair of police officers rushed past with urgency, one of them directing us to clear the scene. In that split moment of distraction, the ominous figure melted further into the crowd, leaving a sinking heaviness in the pit of my stomach. "Mia, we can't stay here. They'll come for us, for you, if we don't circle back and figure this out." My words felt feeble against the roar of sirens, and then a small gesture broke through the panic. A child, no older than 6, emerged from the throng, clutching a crooked cardboard sign that read "Hugs for free." She approached Mia timidly, eyes wide like saucers, and despite the gravity of our situation, there was innocence radiating around that small frame. Mia knelt, instinctively drawn to this beam of light, and wrapped the little girl in an embrace. In that fleeting moment, the shadows retreated, and the world narrowed down to soft giggles, the warmth of connection cutting through the frigid grip of dread. My heart swelled, even as fear clawed at my mind. Maybe we could find sanctuary even amidst the storm. But then, just as sorrowful clouds seemed to part for a thin stream of sunlight, I caught a glimpse of something, an emblem clipped to the child's backpack, a subtle insignia that chilled me to the core. It matched the symbol the stranger had flashed earlier, the one that hinted at the darkness following Mia. My throat tightened as I pieced together the connection that I hoped was merely a coincidence. "Mia," I said, my voice dropping to a worried whisper as the child released her and trailed back to the chaos. "That symbol, those shadows are closer than we thought. We need to move, now?" I instinctively scanned the area for an escape route, calculating our next move. "No, we can't keep running," she insisted, her features hardening with determination. "It's time to confront them. I can't let them dictate my life anymore." There was an ember igniting in her chest, a resolve mirrored by the stranger who studied her intensely, as if he knew more about her decision than I did. Then, Lucas stepped into view, his expression morphing in an unsettling mix of concern and rage. "You don't know what you're inviting," he warned, his tone grating against the resolve building within Mia. "This isn't a choice you make lightly. You don't fully understand the dangers." Mia turned towards him, defiantly standing her ground as fire lit her eyes. "Then tell me, how can I arm myself with knowledge if no one gives me answers?" "Fine," Lucas snapped, stepping forward. "But know this, the truth is a double-edged sword. It can free you or destroy you. Your decision comes with a price." I felt the tension escalate, thick as fog, and in that fraught silence, I glimpsed fleeting emotions flicker across my face. mixture of fear layered with strength, the weight of her choices pressing against her chest. And suddenly I was struck by an overwhelming urge to push past the tempest swirling around us. I locked my gaze on her, intent on grounding her to the moment, then pulled her slightly closer. "Mia," I murmured, my voice soothing yet urgent. "Whatever price we pay, I'll face it with you. But let's arm ourselves with the truth first. The world where the shadows lurk it may yet bring danger, but fighting in ignorance only binds us more tightly." Before she could respond, the air around us pulsed with electricity, as if the very atmosphere recognized the weight of our choices. Just then, the crowd gasped, drawing our attention to the streets. And there, emerging from the last shadows, was the figure once more but now surrounded by others. Familiar faces from her past began to gather, a tension crackling between them, and horror flickered in Mia's eyes. As the first whispers reached our ears, I felt my heart plummet. It was a murmur, but the weight was undeniable. Her name was spoken alongside that dreaded symbol, and with a single word from those looming shadows, everything we feared might come true. "Mia, they're here," I uttered, but before I could finish, her expression shifted, determination solidifying into a sharp edge. "Ready or not, it's time. Let them come." Her voice resonated with a haunting finality that echoed through my bones, a resonance challenging the storm brewing within and without. There was no turning back now. As truths began to unravel, the consequences loomed large, and I suddenly realized there would be no escaping what we had stepped into. Whatever lay ahead would entwine us forever. The air crackled with unresolved tension, a palpable apprehension that weighed heavily on my chest as we stood amidst the gathering shadows. Mia's gaze, relentless and fierce, seemed to pierce right through the encroaching chaos, but the tumult of emotions swirling in her eyes betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "Stay close to me," I said softly, not wanting to break the fierce resolve she had kindled, yet needing to safeguard that fragile flame at all costs. Her nod was brief, but it filled me with determination. The storm on the horizon would not take her from me without a fight, and deep down, I feared for what awaited us. The memories she had tried so desperately to escape began threading themselves into the fabric of the moment. Faces from her past, once obscured by her decision to run, now emerged like phantoms, each whisper from the crowd tightening the noose of fate around us. I scanned the encroaching figures, searching for a glimmer of kindness, a hint of familiarity that could perhaps offer refuge instead of revealing the raw, jagged edges of her fractured past. But there was nothing. Just uncertainty and the haunting cadence of her name, Mia. Mia. Mia floating and swirling through the anxious murmurs like a chilling refrain. Each repetition echoed a shadow of her former self that threatened to choke her spirit right then and there. Then, amid the tumult, something unexpected. The stranger stepped forward, and for a moment, time slowed. His voice rang out with a mixture of command and caution. "We need to talk, Mia. You can't hide anymore. Not from this." There was something in his eyes, a flicker of concern or perhaps shared pain that made me question who he truly was and what he meant in her life. Mia hesitated, caught between a past she could not outrun and a future she desperately wanted to claim. "You don't understand. They took everything from me," she cried, vulnerability tearing through her steely resolve. The crowd shifted as the unfamiliar faces within it grew restless, eyes darting around like a pack sensing a change in momentum. Yet it was the kindness of a strange elderly man who had been quietly observing from the fringes who chose that disrupted moment to step in. With a gentle, weathered hand, he reached toward Mia, offering a small paper flower he had fashioned from a discarded napkin. "Take this," he said, voice shaky but warm. "It's not just a flower. It's a reminder that even in the hardest times, life can bloom beautifully. You'll find your strength." Mia looked down at the fragile creation, surprise overshadowing her angst. In that instant, the air seemed to soften, creating a fragile bubble that shielded her from the ugly truths brewing around us. I watched her fingers wrap around the papyrus symbol of hope in the darkness, and my heart raced at the unforeseen kindness that had sprung forth just when we needed it most. But the moment of reprieve was short-lived. The figures from her past advanced, and the hostility in their eyes sent a wave of dread crashing over me. They were no longer mere shadows. They were carrying the weight of shared history, a history built on grief, betrayal, and anger. "Mia, please," one voice broke through the clamoring, noisy woman, once familiar but now twisted by time and pain. "Don't do this. We can fix this together. You don't have to face them alone." That I could feel Mia's heartbeat quicken beside me, her newfound courage trembling at the edges of despair. The weight of the decision she faced was palpable. Should she run again? Or should she confront the truth that had haunted her for so long? Every fiber of my being screamed for her to flee, to protect that indefatigable light within her. But I knew, standing there together, we risked everything if she didn't choose to engage. "Fix what?" Mia yelled, her voice cracking but resolute. "You've taken enough from me. I won't let you run my life anymore." It was a cry that transcended fear, fueled by the fragility of the flower in her hand, and in that moment, it became her weapon, an emblem of defiance against the darkness that sought to envelop her. But then, from the corner of my eye, I caught the stranger, the one who had come to Mia's aid in the chaos, taking a step toward the encroaching figures, eyes ablaze with conviction. "No more hiding, Mia. They need to see you. You're a part of a story greater than they can bear. It's time to reclaim it." The unease spread like wildfire through the gathering crowd, their anticipation stark and electric, an undercurrent of fear mixed with a haunting sense of dread. I wanted to pull Mia back, to shield her from the pain, but I knew she was standing on the precipice of a transformation that couldn't be reversed. Just as the tension reached a breaking point, the woman calling to Mia threw her hands wide, and with a voice trembling with emotion, she spoke a word that shattered the remnants of hope hanging on the fringes of my heart. "You're not the only one who suffered, Mia. We know what you've lost, but you have to accept the truth. Your mother." The world froze around us. Her mother, the specter of a person whose absence had haunted Mia like a specter, a wound festering beneath layers of bravado. Chaos erupted. I felt the blood rush through my veins, my heart squeezing as panic settled in. The name trailed off into murmurs of betrayal and fear rippling through the crowd. "What do you mean?" But before an answer could be found, Mia, with a look of agonizing resignation, turned to me, vulnerability bursting forth. "What haven't you told me?" Her voice trembled, pulling me closer to the abyss between knowledge and ignorance, tearing open the fragile seams of our bond. The stranger's gaze was unwavering as he stood protectively by her side, the urgency rising between us like a tempest. And at that moment, standing on the verge of revelations, the cliff we teetered on felt insurmountable, the truth of her past looming closer than ever, threatening to pull us into its depths. I grasped Mia's hand, but my heart ached with the unrelenting weight of an encroaching darkness, waiting to swallow us whole. The sun dipped behind the horizon, spilling hues of orange and crimson across the sky as the tension hung thicker than the gathering night. I could feel Mia's heart racing in sync with mine, the revelation of her mother suddenly transforming the air around us into something electric, bursting with potential and dread. "Mia, please," I whispered, my voice barely a sound as I squeezed her hand tighter. "If there's something you don't know, let me help you figure it out. We can face it together." But her eyes were fixed on the crowd, a storm brewing beneath the surface of her usually composed demeanor. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, her voice edged with betrayal and sorrow, directed at the stranger who had ignited this firestorm. I struggled to reconcile her anguish with the hope that had just flickered to life, a meticulous dance between the past she had tried to escape and the future she dared to dream. The man who had stepped forward stood firm, maintaining an air of calm amidst the chaos. "Because the truth is hard, Mia. I didn't want to add to your pain. But you deserve to know." "Deserve to know?" Mia echoed, voice rising above the cacophony surrounding us. "You think keeping secrets is protecting me?" She crushed the delicate paper flower in her fist, the gesture embodying the pain of years spent in silence. "My mother hasn't been in my life. What could possibly change that?" A sudden silence fell over the gathered crowd, anticipation morphing into trepidation. I wanted to scream at the world for flinging this weight upon her, for forcing her to confront shadows she was desperate to escape. But standing here beside her, I felt every layer of support I had tried to build for her threatened to crumble. The tension snapped back into the crowd as the woman from before the familiar face warped by time stepped forward again. "Because she didn't choose to leave you, Mia. You need to understand what really happened. Her voice strained yet unwavering. Your mother was taken from us. From you, an icy chill coursed through me as I looked at Mia, her face registering the shift from anger to raw anguish. The unspooling of truths seemed to reverberate within her like a deep bass note, a rhythm she had not been prepared for. What do you mean? Taken? What are you saying? The tremor in her voice splintered my heart. They were looking for something, the woman continued, her breath shaky yet urgent. She tried to protect you, but she sacrificed everything to shield you from the danger that loomed over us. Mia's grip loosened as her fingers reflexively unclenched, the remnants of the paper flower fluttering to the ground. Sacrificed? So, she's alive. We've been searching for her, the stranger interjected, stepping closer, his eyes lined with an urgency I had never seen before. But we weren't able to find her. She needs your help now more than ever, and time is running out. The cacophony of emotions swirled chaotic within Mia as she grappled with disbelief and faint embers of hope. I searched for something to say that could anchor her in this tumultuous wave, but words seemed inadequate against the dark backdrop of her unveiled past. The crowd hung on the cusp of revelation, their breaths held tight, like strings waiting to snap. Just as her gaze began to shimmer with unshed tears, growing resolutely fierce once more, I urged her, Mia, this is a chance to have what you thought was lost for good. But before she could respond, the elderly man who had offered her the flowers stepped forth again. The kindness radiating from him seemed to wrap around Mia, holding her steady. Sometimes, facing our demons doesn't mean we lose ourselves in the darkness, but rather we find the light within us, he said, concurring with the stranger's plea. You have strength, and you're not alone. Not anymore. His words, gentle yet sturdy, resonated in my chest as the turmoil within her stilled, if just for a moment. I could almost see the layers of Mia's resolve knitting back together, the glimmers of belief forged in the crucible of this infinite sorrow. Yet that moment of hope ebbed, as quickly as it had appeared. From somewhere within the crowd, a low murmur ignited, passing silently through the gathering before erupting in a unified gasp. A figure emerged from the darkness, one I could scarcely process at first, an older woman. Her resemblance to Mia, hauntingly undeniable, stepped into view. My heart dropped as the warmth of hope transformed into a freezing crispness of uncertainty. The once familiar outline of a mother thought lost forever materialized into something fraught with unanswerable questions, hovering just outside the boundaries of her daughter's heart. Mia, she whispered, a voice that caressed yet bore all the pain of unresolved love and unsaid truths. The world shifted around us, and even the wind held its breath, waiting for the impact of this long-buried reunion. Mia's eyes widened with recognition. I felt the fragile bond we had nurtured strain against the weight of this desperate discovery, the severity of emotion flooding in with the tide of memories both longed for and deeply feared. Our fates intertwined with the haunting reality of a woman found, yet so much still remained lost. In that charged moment, the echo of forgotten love hung heavy in the air, and I realized we had just reached the edges of a truth dark enough to shatter the delicate bloom we had been fostering. And as I watched Mia's disbelief morph into an unfathomable naivety, I couldn't shake the all-consuming dread that awaited us with each revelation yet to come. The stillness shattered as Mia stepped forward, her expression an intricate tapestry of emotions: joy, anger, confusion. The woman before her, her resemblance unmistakable, took a tentative step closer, her hands trembling at her sides. I could see that the years of separation had chiseled both beauty and wear into the woman's features. Lines of worry etched deep into her brow told stories of struggle and sacrifice untold. Mia, she repeated, a thread of desperation weaving through the word, as though it were the very lifeline that connected them. I've missed you every day. The words struck like lightning, igniting both a spark of hope and a wave of apprehension. I instinctively reached for Mia's hand, squeezing gently, trying to communicate strength in the face of this emotional tempest. With every heartbeat, I could feel her wavering, the weight of a past she had long been denied crashing down upon her fragile present. I don't understand. Mia's voice cracked, echoing her shattered composure. You left me. Why shouldn't I be angry? I had to leave. Darling, her mother replied, tears glistening in her eyes, making the white-hot pain within me pulse alongside MIA's confusion. I did everything for you to protect you from them. You have to believe me, them? MIA's voice was icy, her denial a shield against the heartache that seemed poised to engulf her. What do you mean? A heavy silence gripped the gathered crowd, as though reality itself was holding its breath. Behind Mia, the elderly man's expression had shifted from warmth to concern, reflecting the gravity of the encounter unfolding before us. They were searching for something powerful, something they believed was within you too. Her mother continued, the tremor in her voice betraying the weight of years spent in fear. They knew I had it, and they thought that if they took me away, they could find it. But I won't let them have you, Mia. Not ever. That's why I had to go. MIA's gaze narrowed as fury battled with disbelief, rendering her momentarily speechless. The memories she had fought so hard to reconcile began swirling around in a dizzying haze, days spent cradled in the arms of a mother who had seemingly evaporated from her life without explanation, leaving only scattered pieces to put together. Why now? Mia finally managed to choke out. Why come back now when my life has been built without you in it? I had to wait until it was safe to return, her mother said, stepping closer again, urgency evident in her eyes, like that of a mother hen sensing the predator close at hand. I've spent years working to keep you safe from afar. But the truth is, they've found us again. It's not over. It's going to happen again if we don't act fast. A collective gasp swept through the crowd, and I felt the air grow heavier. Before Mia could process this, shadows began to flutter at the edges of visibility, restless and dark like gargoyles perched eagerly to pounce. Anxiety gnawed at my stomach as I instinctively took a step back, realizing how precarious this situation had become. Mia, we need to go, I whispered urgently, desperate to pull her away before she spiraled into a fear she wasn't prepared to handle. But instead, she stood there, rooted to the spot, eyes locked onto the woman she had longed for more than anything, a connection that felt impossibly fragile, yet undeniably real. I have to know, Mia said, her voice resolute as she searched her mother's face, the love mingling with something else, seeing unmistakable longing for answers. What did you sacrifice? What must I do to protect myself from them? The moment stretched long, each second pregnant with the weight of questions unanswered. There was a fire in Mia that sparked to life, the kind that had been trapped beneath layers of grief and betrayal, beginning to illuminate the darker corners of her reality. Her mother's gaze softened, yet the shadows in her eyes deepened. You must keep your guard up, she cautioned, her voice a ghost of a whisper. There are those who will stop at nothing to find you, and I made a grave mistake returning here. I thought time would heal, but danger is already on the horizon. And just like that, a new wave of dread crashed over me, swallowing the flicker of hope we had dared to hold on to. The crowd fidgeted, whispers ricocheting like startled birds. Faces morphed from intrigue to concern. The current atmosphere was electric with uncertainty. I looked back at Mia, her expression shifting between defiance and unshakable fear. In this fragile moment of confusion, decisions made would echo for eternity. Suddenly, a sharp shout pierced through the air, a discordant sound that felt almost predestined. Run! Someone cried out from the periphery, and the crowd jolted into action, a rush of bodies propelled by a primal fear. Mia, I grabbed her hand, the urgency of the moment crashing over me. But she hesitated, torn between the mother she had lost and the chaotic dangers surrounding her. We have to go? As we stumbled backward, I felt a surge of foreboding wash over me, twisting my gut like a vice. The world around us shifted, the shadows from earlier seemed to glide forward, whispers crawling like vines through the air, as if the narrative of our lives was being rewritten before our very eyes. It was then I saw it just beyond the crowd. Cloaked in darkness where the light seemed to flicker, a figure lingered, stooping low as if waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And in that split second, every instinct screamed at me that we had awakened something we weren't ready to face. Mia, I love you, I managed to get out, urgency woven deeply into my words, hoping to tether her to me amid the chaos brewing around. Please, let's not fight this fight today. But as she turned back to her mother, I knew the proverbial dam had broken. We were not merely witnessing a reunion. We were teetering on the precipice of something darker, something that could either bind us together in strength or shatter our already fragile lives into irrevocable pieces. The distant echoes of turmoil faded into the background, yet I felt a chilling imminence that confirmed this was only the beginning. Mia stood, the chaos swirling around her as she gazed into her mother's eyes, wide with a blend of yearning and fear. Time seemed suspended. The myriad of emotions playing across her face held the power to dismantle every defense she had carefully erected. I knew this moment was pivotal, the kind that could alter the trajectory of her life forever. "Mia?" I called again, but the pleading sound felt caught in my throat, terrified of shattering the fragile connection forming between mother and daughter. "We have to move. Mia, listen to him," her mother urged, desperation creeping into her voice, intensified by the panic that gripped the crowd. "Trust me, I wouldn't have come back if I didn't think you were in danger. Please, we have to." Before she could finish, the figure lurking in the shadows stepped into the dim light. A silhouette framed by uncertainty, their presence froze the air around us. The unmistakable sound of a voice, smooth and chilling, cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "How quaint," the figure said, a hint of mockery lacing their words. "A family reunion. Don't you just love the theatrics of fate?" Mia jolted, her gaze snapping to the intruder. "Who are you?" she demanded, the strength in her voice surprising even me. Fixing her with an unnerving gaze, the figure shrugged, revealing a face that was deceptively youthful yet familiar. "Just a friend," they replied, that smile spreading like a shadow across their features. Though friend seems too strong a word for our shared history, my heart raced. An instinctual awareness that this person was of the same dark origin that had loomed over Mia's family. Their presence confirmed the danger that her mother spoke of, the specters from the past still haunting her every step. "Mia, don't engage," I warned, stepping closer, trying to shield her from this embodiment of chaos. I reached out, but was stopped by her fierce shake of the head. "That I want to know," Mia insisted. "What do you want with us?" The figure chuckled, a sound haunting in its resonance. "Oh, dear girl, it's not about what I want. It's about what you hide within." Mia's breath hitched, a realization settling heavy in the space between us. The desire for answers mingled with fear, and I sensed she was so close to the edge of understanding, yet perilously vulnerable. This stranger was not merely a threat. They were a looming dark piece of her past, wrapped in layers of enigma that made them infinitely more dangerous. "You think hiding will keep you safe?" The figure taunted, taking a step forward, eyes narrowing as if she were prey. "The world is far too small for secrets like yours, Mia." The crowd shifted uneasily, the tension palpable. As whispers of dread echoed, I squeezed Mia's hand tighter, unwilling to let her succumb to the peril that surrounded us. I felt her pulse through our connection, rapid and frantic, and it broke my heart. This was not just fear, it was betrayal from the echoes of her past. "Mia, remember what your mother said," I urged, desperation breaking through. "We need to leave. This isn't a game. Mia, please listen to him," her mother added, sensing the risk enveloping us. "You aren't prepared for this. You have to trust me." "You trust?" The figure smirked. "What has trust ever gotten you, sweet Mia? You think she has your best interests at heart? She left you." The figure spat the words like venom. "She's the reason they've come for you again. No. No," Mia shrieked, her voice climbing, inflected with horror. "You're lying, am I?" The figure countered smoothly, carefully watching as cracks in her armor formed. "You don't know the whole truth." And in that moment, the ground beneath us seemed to split wide. I felt the truth creeping in like a cold breeze. The shadows had begun taking shape around us, a darkness that fed on chaos. The urgency in the air thickened as I realized this was more than a confrontation. It was the very manifestation of Mia's fearsome nexus entwined with love and pain all at once. "Mia, don't let them get inside your head," I shouted, desperation fueling my warning. I tried pulling her away, but she was frozen, eyes wide, grappling, with the words seeping into her like a poison, each syllable striking home with as much weight as reality allowed. Turning to her mother, Mia searched for affirmation, but it was as if time had conspired to leave us hopelessly entangled in a web of lies. "Is it true?" she pleaded, the tremor of doubt tearing at her resolve. "Did you leave me for a reason I can't understand?" No, Mia, her mother gasped, stepping forward, desperate to spell out the truth amidst the chaos. They took me yet before she could finish. The figure cut her off with a mere wave of the hand. Does it matter? The game has changed, dear Mia. You see, your mother made choices that have brought tragedy upon us all. You're caught in the middle, a pawn only she is protecting. Suddenly, everything seemed to spiral. Mia's breath hitched, managing to forge a minuscule crack in the wall she had built so fiercely. With that vulnerable flicker illuminated, I saw the shadows multiply as my own heart thudded heavily in my chest. Mia? I implored once more. The urgency in my tone clawed at the fraying connection between what was true and what was both feared and desired. She stood at the precipice, a storm brewing behind her, a mix of defiance and uncertainty. But in that moment, a thought struck like a lightning bolt. Moments before it all imploded, I noticed a small child from the crowd, tears glistening on their cheeks as they clutched a worn-out teddy bear. Their innocent plea for comfort cut through the chaos, drawing a tidal wave of caring from those watching. Mia, I whispered, my heart aching at the sight. Look at the child. We can't let fear rule us. We have to be better than this. Mia's gaze shifted, breaking the trance that held her in its grip. In the depths of confusion and chaos, her face began to soften, realization dawning. Beneath the surface of swirling emotions, I could see a glimmer of understanding. Hope was flickering amidst the darkness. But just as that light began to gain strength, the figure laughed, a delicious sound of malevolence. Hope, how quaint. But let me tell you, child, darkness comes for those who think they can hide in the light. Choose wisely, because I feel danger is far too close for comfort. With those words, the air grew heavy once more. The sense of foreboding thickened around us, gnawing at the edges of our reality. In that moment, the ground beneath us didn't just fracture. It opened a chasm toward an unknown abyss, an unsettling direction, toward a future we had only begun to explore. That I held Mia tight, a fierce protectiveness igniting deep within as the shadows continued to swirl, enveloped by a fierce need for survival. Whatever came next loomed on the horizon, and as night fell, it felt insurmountably closer with each passing second. I was overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions as I stood in that charged atmosphere, watching as the past and present collided in front of me. The swirling chaos surrounding Mia painted a vivid picture of heartache, unresolved questions, and deep-seated fears. But within that chaos, I could also see the flicker of defiance in her eyes, an ember that burned fiercely despite the darkness closing in. Mia, I whispered urgently, we have to leave right now. She hesitated, torn between the longing for answers and the intrinsic instinct to flee from a danger she could scarcely comprehend. But I can't just turn my back, she breathed, her voice wavering with uncertainty. That I looked into her eyes, that familiar gaze that had once held so much promise, now clouded with doubt. You're not just running away, Mia. This is about survival. I didn't want her to see her mother as just a figure from the past. I wanted to show her that she had a choice to choose her own path forward. The figure loomed, casting shadows that felt all too familiar, holding their power over the memories Mia had tried to outrun. You think you can protect her? The figure taunted, stepping forward into the dim light. You don't know the depths of what lies within the Waverly bloodline. You're only setting her up for failure. But I felt a surge of determination ignite within me, an unwavering confidence fighting against the tide of despair. No, you don't get to manipulate her anymore, I said with force, stepping protectively in front of Mia, my heart pounding in my chest. Whatever your ties are to her past, it doesn't define who she is and who she can become. Mia's mother faltered for a moment, as though she had been struck by a revelation. She is stronger than any of us realize, she added, her voice filled with sincerity. And you must trust that, Mia. You have the power to break free from the cycle of fear. The shadows around us fluttered as murmurs of disbelief spread through the crowd. It was in that moment that I realized this was more than a battle against the darkness of the past. It was a pivotal moment toward acceptance and release. Whatever fears had held Mia captive, she now had the chance to confront them. Mia, I implored, stepping closer. You are not a prisoner of your history. Let this be your moment to reclaim your power, to find the truth on your own terms. It was as if my words cracked open the frozen landscape of her heart, an invitation to step out of the shadows that had loomed for far too long. Mia, her mother echoed, desperation clawing at her voice. If I never returned, it was to protect you from a danger that transcends both of us. I had hoped the years would diminish the threat. I never wanted to keep you in the dark. Tension hung between us like a fragile web spun on the edge of a precipice, begging to be undone. It was MIA's turn to forge her path, a pathway illuminated by hope, determination, and a choice that could redefine her future. I am done with running. MIA's voice finally rang clear, slicing through the tension like a blade. Her eyes glimmered, and I could see the fierce spirit beneath every doubt and fear she had harbored. I will confront what has tried to control my life for so long. I will face it, and I will own my story. A newfound strength enveloped her. The dark figure recoiled, their laugh tinged with incredulity. You think you have control? You are merely a pawn, a weapon created by an accident of bloodline. You don't know what you're asking for. But Mia stood her ground, her expression unwavering. I may be a part of this story, but I refuse to be trapped by it. You don't define my fate. I am taking it back. And I won't do it alone, she added, reaching for my hand, a gesture that sent waves of warmth buzzing through me. Her mother reached out too, hope flickering in the depths of her eyes. Mia, if we stand together, we can face whatever comes. Together. Always. The dust settled, hesitance evaporating as determination flourished in the light we held between us. The figure, once this imposing specter from MIA's hidden past, now seemed like a fleeting shadow, losing its power under the light of our collective resolve. Get ready, I murmured, squeezing her hand tightly, just as the darkness that had haunted Mia began to reflect uncertainty. Whatever happens next, we face it as a family. Suddenly, the sirens that had beamed in the backdrop quieted, and the world around us churned. Time slowed as we stood united, a new arc forming in the story that had unfolded over a lifetime. With one strong pull, we stepped toward the figure that had held the key to both Mia's past and her potential future. The air crackled with electric tension, as if the universe itself acknowledged the monumental change that was about to take place. Let's embrace the truth, I said firmly. Together. And then I saw its shadows dissipated as the very essence of hope propelled us forward, reaching for the signals we had often ignored. For in that moment, as we closed the distance, we weren't just reclaiming MIA's life from the darkness. We were illuminating a path of acceptance, love, and the unwavering belief that family wasn't merely a matter of blood, it was a choice. The moment the light collided with the shadows, I felt my heart swell with overwhelming emotion, encompassing the power of hope, connection, and resolution. As the light enveloped us, the last barrier holding us back shattered, leaving only the whispers of our fears behind, mere echoes of a past that no longer defined us. In that final embrace of light, I realized our journey wouldn't just be about facing the ghosts of Mia's life. It would be the birth of something infinitely more beautiful, the rewriting of her story, unshackled and finally free. Together, Mia, I whispered, as warmth surged through me. We're finally home.